What happens when two bass road warriors spend quality time talking music and life with one of their peers? Bassist, educator, author David C. Gross and bassist and head honcho of KnowYourBassPlayer.com, Tom Semioli, trade dates with the legends of rock, jazz, funk, blues, folk, country, and more. Notes from an Artist, revealing conversations with the legends who've created the soundtrack of our lives. What happens? You're about to find out. It's another episode of Notes from an Artist.
Well, David C. Gross, what another amazing show we had. This one with Jerry Jemmott, an icon of the electric bass, as you must agree, David.
I have to agree, because you said so.
Jerry Jemmott, we're talking about a guy whose profile should be on the Mount Rushmore of bass players as a session player. Let's run down the names. Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, Wilson Pickett, Roberta Flack, George Benson, Eddie Harris, B.B. King, Carly Simon, Ye Gods. He was also a recording artist in his own right. I think he put out about 5 solo
You forgot
records.
The most famous recording, at least for me, Memphis Soul Stew with King Curtis live at the Fillmore. I spent days when I was a kid learning how to play that.
Wow. What was your impression? Now, you got to Jerry Jemmott a little bit before I did. Was he up there? I guess he was up there with Jamerson and Duck Dunn. Was he well known in the 60s, or was he one of those guys that was behind the curtain, so to speak?
Well, you got to remember, when we're talking about the age difference that you and I have, which is only about 6 years, I was still a kid, so I didn't really know who the session players were. I knew the music, but I was listening to Cream and The Who and stuff like that. So obviously I knew, because they were a band, who they were. But session musicians, I didn't really understand that whole concept until I went to Berkeley in 71. Who knew? Although I was friends with Don Lamond, he played with Charlie Parker and Woody Herman and lived on the 14th floor of my building. Okay. So I knew something was going on, but I really wasn't into it. However, when I did get both Aretha live at the Fillmore West and King Curtis at Fillmore West, I went, wow. And of course, I had heard The Thrill Is Gone. Come on, even without knowing who it was, you knew that was something special. And that something special was a guy by the name of Jerry Jemmott.
Jerry Jemmott, and of course, everyone knows him from the Jaco Pastorius video, probably the most comprehensive interview with Jaco, at least the most comprehensive that was ever filmed. And we didn't really harp on that too much. I know he spoke of it, but so many other interviews have talked about the Jaco video, so we kind of sidestepped that, although Jerry had some very poignant things to say about that. And what is interesting is Jerry's putting out an autobiography. It is available now. It is entitled Make It Happen: The Life and Times of the Groove Master, which you can get on Amazon. You can help out.
And we have a link on our podcast, so you can click on that and go right to Amazon to get that. And also his other book.
Right. Well, and also, all his instructional books. Now, this interview, David, was prompted by our friend Ron Carter. And Ron says, hey, why don't you give Jerry a call? And we thought, yeah, we've been meaning to do that. So it was great. Thank you, Ron, for recommending Jerry to us. We got to have Ron and Jerry on together. We'll figure that out sometime in the future to get those.
Yeah, but when you say Ron Jerry quickly, I'm thinking Ron Jeremy.
Ron Jeremy. We would like to have Ron Jeremy on as well.
That'll be a long show.
That'll be a very... I understand he's not well, but it was interesting to talk with Jerry. He's old school, as you will hear in our interview. We always bring up the topic of extended range bass with bass players, and Jerry's opinions on such things are a little more traditional, but he is Jerry Jemmott. He is an icon. I guess he has more of a reverence for his approach to the electric bass than maybe some younger players, but he's entitled to do that. When you're an icon, you get that.
Precisely.
Get that free pass, but it's a great interview.
Great set list. We have some really wonderful songs.
Oh, man.
A few of them are actually a little obscure. There's a Freddie Hubbard tune called Shorty Rides Again, which is very, very cool. You'll enjoy that.
All right,
our listener will enjoy that.
Our listener will enjoy that. Let's get to our interview with Jerry Jemmott. You can listen to this interview in its entirety on our podcast, Notes from an Artist podcast, which is on Amazon, Buzzsprout, Spotify, and all the other platforms. And you can read this interview, David, in the newest edition of Bass Musician Magazine, the June issue, which you can get on our website, or you can just Google it and you can find.
That's right. Go to bassmusician.com.
Or go to www.notesfromanartist.com. It's up there.
And there's also another interview that a guy named Anchor Fledge wrote about you and I.
That's right.
aging into the bass kingdom, as it were.
Right. Geezers. Bass life begins at 60. Yes, David and I were interviewed by Nanker Fledge or Flodge or
Fledge.
Okay. And those of you who remember the role.
Not to be confused with Lemon Pledge.
Yes, we should have been interviewed by.
We're as old as Lemon Pledge.
We are, or Windex at least. So those of you still.
Wasn't he a blues singer, Blind Lemon Pledge?
I think he was, yes.
Yeah.
I'm Peter Lemongello. So, all right, let's get on. It is Jerry Jemmott.
Here you go.
There's Jerry.
Okay.
Hello.
Hey, Jerry, and it looks like you're just wandering around the apartment.
I'm working. I'm constantly working.
Constantly working. What are you working on?
Well, it was my third interview today. And I actually had a meeting earlier, just tying some things together. My book is the biggest thing I'm trying to promote and get out there. So,
well, then we're going to talk about that right up front.
Yes, indeed.
All right. So welcome to the show, Notes from an Artist. David, our guest is Jerry Jemmott. I would imagine he is an icon of the electric bass, the instrument there. David, in case you forgot, that is an electric bass right there, just like the one Jerry.
No, it's not. This.
It's
an electric bass.
Oh, you like red? Oh, yeah. With 17 strings on it.
Exactly.
Just 6. One only needs 6.
As a matter of fact, we're doing a show on
Monday, actually.
Well, yes, we're doing this show will be on Monday, but we were talking about if had Jaco Pastorius lived, and of course he did the Jaco video back in the day, would Jaco have gravitated towards the extended range bass? My guess is yes, because Jaco was always into new things and new sounds. I know he took Joni Mitchell's very first acoustic amp, and he was always working with pedals and things like that. So I think when the extended range bass became a little bit more practical and well-designed, better designed, I should say, I think Jaco would have gone 5 and 6 string. What say you, Jerry?
I'd say no.
Okay, well, there goes that theory. Wow. And why do you say Jaco would have stuck with 4?
Well, he loved the bass, the pure bass and the instrument itself.
Okay.
And the 4 strings make you play like a bass player.
Right.
Because you have less to work with and you're more foundational. Mm-hmm. It's just a different head. It's very hard to play 6 strings with taste. I feel very few people can play tastefully normal bass parts or even extended bass parts with taste. Sound is different, that low B string or the high C string.
Okay.
It gives you just a different instrument.
Well, let me introduce you to David C. Gross, who was a 6-string bass player. And I've got to tell you, interesting, I never played the 6-string bass. I played a 5-string bass in the 90s and 80s when it was required and things. And the 6-string bass, we've talked with Dave Swift. David, you've talked with Anthony Jackson, and they feel that the real bass guitar is the 6-string guitar because, as we know from history, Leo wanted to sell Fender bass to upright bass players to reduce the wear and tear, and it was easier. Mobility was a lot easier. Hence, the bass guitar was 4 strings so he could sell it to bass players. But David Swift and Anthony Jackson maintained that the true bass guitar is the 6-string bass. Now, my partner, David C. Gross, is quite the 6-string bass player, and we've been playing with pink strings and all. We've been playing gigs around town, and when David and I did a couple of blues gigs together, folks were astounded how David played blues on the 6-string bass without, I would say, being overbearing on the upper or lower register. So the 6-string bass, I think, can be played just like any other bass, David.
The way I look at it, particularly from a studio perspective, is within the first 3 frets, from low B to high C, you have 2 octaves of D. So for me, it made sense. Back in the day, Sony used to do a lot of karaoke in Japan. And one of the ways they were able to do this as abundantly as they did is they would call me to change keys. So if something was in, let's say, A, they want to bring it down to, let's say, an E flat or something, I could do it that way. Mm-hmm. I think, do most 6-string bass players have diarrhea of the hands? Without a doubt. But I think the key for me in particular, and remember, I was one of Willie's subs, so he wouldn't be thinking that I'm going to, slop up the joint. I mean, Harold Wheeler loved the fact that I could read his charts. The thing is, once as long as you grew up playing bass, I would say that for me, I hear it that way. And visually, I see it that way. Victor Gaskin used to be my instructor, and he loved when I would do Bach cello suites and go, oh, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
So for me, I always thought low. As a matter of fact, on this 6-string, I have a double stomp on the low B. I can actually get a G. Now,
Whoa.
of course, it will make you go to the bathroom. However, it's a great low note.
Yeah, it's a great low note for sure.
So can we say that the six string bass is more dependent on the player and how he or she approaches it, as opposed to the instrument?
Every instrument, and it's so easy, to let's get diarrhea of the hands.
It's an official illness.
Yes, I like.
It's a very official ailment, right?
Well,
Department of Health has just deemed it an ailment.
You can get it. It's much easier to get it. It's so much more available. It's almost like this modern day that we're living in, where we have instant gratification through what we're seeing. We can order. We can never leave home. We can order food in. You don't have to go home. Everything is like centered around immediate, instant gratification. Basically, that's what you can call it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it has that. So I like. It's funny when you mention all the ideas about playing six string is great. But one thing with like playing four string, it makes you become more creative, and creativity comes from a lack of something. So you become, I would say you become less creative playing six string because you have so much available to you, and you miss that struggle of having to invert a line and play that, go down as low as you can, and then jump back up, play an octave higher to have the line make sense. And it makes beautiful music, as opposed to everything that you can hear going a scale line all the way down to the bottom, as opposed to going part way down and jumping back up to the middle. It's more musical and more lyrical and has a groove to it that it's more, you can get more uniqueness out of it, as opposed to the same old thing. You can hit a whole 2 octaves. Yeah, that's great, easily. But the challenge of making music comes from, I think creativity comes from a lack of something, as opposed to having an abundance of something.
Well, that's an interesting perspective. We've been doing these shows and video series about me defending the 80s. And one of the reasons I defend the 1980s as a generation, pop music, jazz, rock, rhythm and blues, etc., is not so much the artists and the songs. Okay, Sly Stone spoke to his generation, Prince spoke to his generation, James Brown spoke to his generation when it came to funk and things like that. But because all these things came to fruition, such as the DX7 and electric basses, their sound improved with active electronics and onboard electronics. Now we could hear the bass. It was not a low hum on the bandstand or on the recording studio. Now with the DX7, you could do string arrangements and play them in the bar. You didn't, it wasn't string arrangements now, or orchestral arrangements weren't just for rock stars who can afford an orchestra. Now the bar band guy could go out there and do sorts of things.
It's wonderful. It's this whole idea of digitalization and synchronization and synthetic synthesizers and drum machines has leveled the playing field where anybody can make music, has the tools to make music, and depending upon how creative the person is with them, and have the level of they want to invest in natural sound as opposed to synthetic sound. Right. It's a matter of where you are, what you're about doing. There's a lot of things involved. It all comes down to the individual.
Yeah, and Ron Carter always says it's the big M.
The big M.
Carter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Before we get to your book, one topic we spoke with Ron Carter about a month and a half ago, and I was discussing with him, and we also had on our bass forum Dave Swift from later with Jules Holland, probably the most recognizable bass player in the UK. We had Benny Reitfeld, who's been with Santana for the past 30 years, and of course was with Miles and Sheila E. We had Larry Grenadier, the great jazz player, and we had the great classical player Gary Carr. And one of the things that I'm noticing is that in popular music, not in jazz or classical, that the electric bass has almost disappeared from the music. If I'm listening to records by, let's say, Beyonce or Rihanna or Dua Lipa, I'm not hearing a bass line anymore. I'm hearing maybe a synth bass or maybe a bass just doubling some other instrument. And, back in the day, I used to turn on the AM and the FM radio and I'd hear, King Curtis, and I hear electric bass on that record. Or I'd hear Aretha Franklin and I'd hear electric bass on that record. What's happened? Why is the electric bass disappeared from pop music, which is the portal that most people are introduced to music? And how do we get it back, Jerry?
Well, it's funny. I hadn't realized. I've seen the use of keyboard instruments to emulate the bass.
Right.
I saw that coming, and it's a different sound. It's a different bass. It's a different texture. It's technology. And people like, I'm finding there's so much going on right now. People like man-made stuff. They like man-made stuff. They like nature-made stuff also. So you're caught between now where most people are being exposed to man-made stuff.
Okay.
Things made by man. We've always traditionally liked things made by other cultures, other people. It's natural to like something else. But now this whole idea of synthetic instruments and the synthetic creativity process using artificial intelligence becoming a big thing. This is all part of that same idea of something having made by, it's like instead of eating a handful of blueberries, you'd rather have a blueberry pie, and so it's like, and it's a beauty in that. The fact that somebody put time into it to do it this way, and they didn't have to play an instrument per se. They were able to use their own and their intelligence and blah, blah, blah. I get it. There's a certain lure and attraction to that people want something. They want something made by a robot. That's become the new thing. A robot made this. Wow. As opposed to, look what my kid did. We've had it in that. And once the cow is out the barn, it ain't coming back in. This is what we're looking at. So that's just the reality, man.
Okay, so where does your book fit in all of this?
Well, my book fits into the fact that it's not always easy for everybody, that everybody has a different, we have challenges. Mm-hmm. We have to overcome challenges in order to achieve our goals. And sometimes it's easier for other people than others. For instance, I could never play, for me, 3 strings is enough. Just to get an example of how people are different. Okay. And we have certain challenges. I had a tremendous amount of learning disabilities as a child coming up.
Okay.
And so for me, 5 strings was always a problem. To play a 5-string bass, I've encountered it a few times.
Right.
It was always something I could not get into. I've tried to play it. My learning disabilities didn't allow me to hear the bass well. I went through a lot of changes to play. And fortunately, I picked up the electric bass when I was, 1964. I was 18.
Okay.
And basically, it saved my musical career because I was able to, for the first time, actually hear the notes I was playing, and I could play with more authority. I got more confidence, and I realized that although the instrument I was playing, I didn't really like the sound of it. I had to develop a new sound that was compatible with my sensibilities. And not knowing that I really couldn't hear at that time, I didn't know I had a hearing deficiency.
Okay.
Until much later, there was always a problem for me to hear and distinguish notes. So a lot of people have difficulties in learning anything, and having the right tools and being diagnosed at an early time, could be quite helpful. And having alternative means of education is also something that might be helpful for people with disabilities. Right. So that's where my book kind of comes in, because I realized in writing it and going back, I had a whole lot of stuff going on, which I had not really considered when I played. In fact, I just kind of finished an interview with a friend of mine from Greece, and he asked me a question. Forgot the question, but my response was, "Oh yeah, I knew this answer before because I realized in writing my book that my life has been a life of desperation." He asked me, "Why did people like my music? Why I had so many fans?" I said, "What was it in my music that I thought that people liked?" And I said, "It's the desperation that they heard coming out." Now, I called it desperation. I didn't think it was desperation. I was saving my life. I was playing, just imagining how exciting it is to see somebody in the river or the ocean fighting for your life, trying to get a lifesaver. It's very captivating. You're not going to take your eyes to that person trying to save his life, basically. Mm-hmm. And so basically, this is the kind of energy I bring to the table. It's like do or die. If I don't get this done, do it this way. My life is on the line. So I've always had this mentality, and looking back in my life now, 50 years later, I'm saying, yeah, you were pretty desperate, because music did save my life. But I didn't think of it that way as I was doing it. I was just doing something. Finally, I found something that I could do, that I could see myself doing for the first time in my life. And I was 9 years old when I had this epiphany, and that's coming out of a serious car accident where I was in a coma for 2 weeks. So everybody's story is different, how they come about getting it. But that's the energy that I possess, that I have, that is do or die. Right. And this is what people, they see somebody struggling, somebody having a hard time. It's very exciting.
Is this where your color sound music was born of, this learning difficulty?
No, actually, it came out of playing with Laura Nero.
Okay.
And my friend Herb Lavelle, my partner, he suggested that I turn my music instruction method, which uses the numeric system as opposed to focusing on alpha names. I focus on scale degrees and the importance within the chord and the structure, learning music that way, harmonically. And he asked me if I could convert my system using colors. And I said, well, why not? If you can call it A, I can call it indigo. If you call it B flat, I can call it pink. I can call, I can do what I ended up doing. So eventually I ended up turning Pythagoras as Pythagoras. Thank you.
Thank you, Diarrhea Hands.
Will you please stop or I'll have to come through and kill you?
Yeah. So I eventually piggybacked on his system and used his same basic, the order of his notes that were based upon the color sound, the rainbow, which is the key of C. And I basically added the black notes on the piano, which is the other 5 notes of the accidentals. And I gave them names. And I gave them names that were according to what we see in real life on this planet, as opposed to just the rainbow colors. Right. I gave them like silver, like gold, brown, turquoise, and pink. Those are the 5 colors I added. And these are things that we live with, that we see all the time, as opposed to just the rainbow colors. And if a note gets so high in pitch, it turns white, but it'll be in that key. And if it gets so dark and low, which notes do, we have 12 octaves, it's going to turn black, but it'll be in that key. That's how the system was evolved. That's why I find it credible. And I can actually affect a friend of mine at MIT, Musicians Institute out here in California, wanted to use it to teach people how to develop perfect pitch. Seeing that, this system has so many applications. It's beyond my vision. I put it in the hands of the world where they can make of it what they want and develop it in terms of getting more out of it than I can especially say it's going to do X, Y, Z. It's going to be whatever you want it to be, basically, based upon your creativity, your needs. Right. Basically, I look at it as a cross-referencing system for learning. Because once you
I see it great for children.
That's of course
just starting out.
Oh, imagine a baby in a crib, okay?
And being able to touch things and hear
exactly,
sound.
hear it, and know that red has a certain tonality.
Yeah.
And that green has a certain tonality. And you add the other colors of pink and turquoise and gold and silver that they see. The parents' car is silver, gold, all these other colors that we normally live with. Right. To have a relationship and have a spark to create based upon a color. And if you look at this, there's a guy on the website has a website that he'll give you the key of any song, basically. Every song you name, you can put it in, he'll tell you what key it's in. And that's all 12 tones. So you got A flat, A sharp, B flat, everything is there. And there's a whole list of thousands of songs in those particular keys. So you find the songs that, this is about cross-referencing. You're getting a connection with something that you heard what you were wearing when you heard that song 30, 40 years ago for the first time. And the memory, it jars the memory. So people with dementia, it helps them in terms of bringing them back to something they can relate to and hold on to. And music is one of the things that we have that people just don't forget.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yes, as a matter of fact, you talk about my mom just passed from dementia in May.
Sorry.
My wife just passed away from progressive supranuclear palsy about a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And
John, I'm so sorry.
Thank you, sir. And the power of music, as a matter of fact, one of her exercises we did was my wife was African American. She was 66, so she grew up in Motown. That whole Atlantic Records Motown, and I would get her to exercise dancing to music, and I put on the Soul Station on Sirius XM, and who's the bass player on that station, David? Would be Jerry Jemmott, and it was amazing, Jerry.
On 6-string bass, I think.
No,
actually.
It was Jerry on a 4-string bass. Ahmed Erkin would not allow a 6-string bass in there. But Jerry, no, really, she would dance to your records that you made with Aretha and Ray and Wilson Pickett and Roberta Flack, and it was really amazing that she got to the point where she couldn't speak, but she could sing the lyrics to all those R&B songs, all those records you made back then. Yes. But yes, I see when you talk about the colors and things, yes, the connection. Same with my mom. I would play her Lena Horne records and Billie Holiday records and Frank Sinatra records. That was her generation. And again, she could hardly speak. She could sing the melodies to those records. which, the power.
It's mind blowing, but we can remember the things we remember. It's incredible. Musical sparks has that ability to do that more so than anything else I can think of. When I started writing the book, I had from my friends of mine up in San Jose, when I told them that 4, 5, 7 years ago, they said, "Oh yeah, that's it." And then they got me they sent me a picture of me smoking a cigarette.
Okay.
On a Aretha Franklin cover, and that became the cover photo. And during the process of writing the book, I realized I'm just another one. That became a title. I had 2 or 3 titles after that, but I eventually went back to I'm That Guy.
Yeah,
because I realized that what I've gone through, everybody goes through stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm just another one, basically. And I kind of that's the one I remember the most, that I kind of like symbolizes my journey and the fact that I can hopefully help someone else or other people who have learning disabilities, whatever kind of things they've had, to get through it. Basically, they realize there is hope, there is a way. And I have the tools that I lined out in the book. I became a Buddhist in '73 after having another tremendous car accident, almost life or death car accident. So car accidents have been very prominent in my life, and I have to still be wary. I get hit. I've got rear-ended a few times, but I've had a few where I was at the controls, and that's due to driver error. Okay. You have a panic attack. Right. These things can happen. So I've had it's not been an easy road, but nobody's road is really easy. Right. We all have struggles. We have, premature deaths in our families, our loved ones that leave us premature with illnesses for whatever reason. I mean, that shouldn't be, but this is what happens to people. Right.
When is the book out?
Well, my editor is putting it up to put it up on Amazon this weekend.
Okay.
We'll get a link to that and put it up with the podcast and everything. So
thank you so much.
We'll sell some books. And who is the publisher?
I am.
Oh, you are the publisher. All right.
I'm self-publishing, yes.
Well, how 21st century of you, and you talk about self-publishing now. You have seen, Jerry, the rise and fall of the recording industry from your perspective as a musician, and David and I have seen it as both fans and musicians. I mean, you went from the 45, right? The 45 to the LP, to the CD, and now digital streaming, and everybody is a record label. You think it's the best at times or the worst at times? Is it better off now that we don't have, let's say, the record companies as gatekeepers, or now everyone can express themselves? Everyone is their own record label now with Spotify and Amazon, et cetera.
Thank you. I love, we fight for freedom. Man likes a control man. And the fact that we can be free and the playing field is level, that everybody has an opportunity, I love it. I love that aspect of it. Of course, it hurts. It hurt in a lot of ways, but I like the bottom line is it's here now. Mm-hmm. It ain't going away. And we're not going back to 78s. We're not going back to acetates. We're not going back to 45s, 8 tracks, cassette players. They even stopped making CDs now. I mean, so we've seen the media. And it's funny, in the contracts you sign for your writing contracts, you'd have this clause saying that if there's any other form of music or media delivery system, you will get less money.
Yes.
You get pennies about that. Pennies. Exactly. It gets less and less and less. Yeah. And this is what has been set up this way. But at the same time, they can track the money now. They can track the metadata. They can actually track what's been reissued in a digital form, and that now you can be monetized. So as a result, I'm getting small checks, sometimes large checks for work I did just as being a session bass player 50 years ago.
Right. Ron Carter was talking about this, your friend Ron Carter. And it's funny. He says, he catches them sampling stuff.
Well, for him, yes. For him, sampling it. Yeah.
Right. And he told us, he says, man, if you called me, I'd have given you something better.
Right.
And then he was telling us.
That's why I spoke to Ron the other day. They hit me up from CTI. Somebody's writing a book about the CTI records, and naturally, he is Mr. CTI with his sound. I mean, that made it.
You too, yeah, sure.
Well, not so much. I did a couple. In fact, they canceled the interview for me for that. I don't remember. I worked with Rudy Van Gelder a lot. They didn't want always CTI sessions, so like my memory of doing the George Benson sessions.
Oh, yeah, Other Side of Abbey Road. Fabulous record. Yeah.
I don't remember where they were recorded, to say the truth. They could have been recorded at Columbia for all I already know. Is this another session? Where, but I went to Van Gelder's a lot. There was a trip to go there because you had to cross the bridge. You had to make climbs so you get back to your next session that day. So it was always someone's a hassle, but it's a beautiful thing once you get there. And for me, I didn't realize the history that was connected with it while I was there. I look back now, I think about all the great records that were recorded there. And I was in that same place. It didn't dawn on me, and it really didn't matter, really, because I'm just here trying to do my thing and keeping my head above water, playing with all these great musicians. So it's like it's amazing how you can be in a situation and not being aware how deep it is until you got out the water. You realize what you did.
Jerry, it's funny you say that. I just was telling Tom a few days ago, back when my sister was graduating law school in San Francisco, we took a trip down to L.A., and a friend of my dad's brought me to the Motown studio. Right? I'm walking around, looking around. Who's in the recording studio but James Jamerson?
Wow.
I was a kid. I didn't know.
Yeah. That's how it happens. But it was predestined that you be the great musician that you turned out to be.
Absolutely, David. I keep telling you that.
You see, somebody's got to tell you, Tom.
I'm telling you, man. But, interesting, you stepped out as a solo artist, in the late 70s with Solar Energy, right? You became a band leader. And then I think you put out about 5 records under your own name. What inspired you to step out and do your own thing? And were there any band leaders that you emulated all of a sudden when you had the mantle of band leader?
Well, once again, it was desperation. It's the story of my life. I had to do something, and I got this vision to it's all in my book, but basically it was desperation, bad situation. I had to I wanted to play my music. At that point, I realized I was playing so damn bad. After coming out that last car accident, my playing had suffered so miserably. I was like, nobody's going to hire me except myself. So I better start my own band if I want to play music anymore. So that's why I started, basically. And then my playing improved. I got back to being more like myself, and I started taking jobs and working again, basically. Right. But that was the motivation, basically, that nobody would hire me. And I wanted to play I did have some ideas in my head.
Right.
Yeah.
And as far as who inspired me, Gordon Edwards was a great band leader. He had his band Stuff, and I had encouraged him to stop being a mailman and to become a studio musician.
Good
so
advice.
We were friends. Yeah, right. He took my advice, and he's a great musician. I mean, the cat has great chops. He would play my stuff. He played Chuck's stuff. Yes. And you wouldn't know, you couldn't tell the difference. I mean, who was playing at one point? Is that me or is that Gordon or is that Chuck? And he was so proficient at doing that. Now, me, I can't copy nobody. Right. I can only do me.
You're the best Joey Jemmott out there. As a matter of fact, David and I have played with and had on the show Chris Parker, drummer.
Okay.
It was Chris and Steve Gadd. Yes, he speaks very highly of them. But yeah, as far as band leaders, Gordon Edwards, sure, and Stuff is still in business now.
Yeah, he's still
out there.
I mean, the records about that Gordon's not playing anymore, but he made his mark, and the music is out there.
Right.
Beautiful music, the whole concept. So he inspired me to do that. Of course, there were other great. Charles Woolworth, actually, I guess my first inspiration would be Mingus, because he was the first bass player that I gravitated to after Chambers. That was my first inspiration when I heard him playing after my first car accident, my first car accident, and I woke up and said, I want to do that. That's the first time I wanted to do something, was hearing Paul play. And then he had records as a band leader, but Mingus was known to have a live touring band, and he was, known making composer. So I fell in love with Mingus, through his compositions and being a band leader. So that was my first dream. I had no aspirations of being a band leader at that particular point. I just wanted to be in the band and playing the bass.
Right.
That's as far as I saw it. I didn't want to go any farther than that. And I knew I couldn't really hear myself that well. And I figured with my ignorance that if I couldn't hear me, maybe nobody else could hear me either. So I wasn't pressured. So I was comfortable playing the bass. Mm-hmm. But now I found out when I started playing electric bass, I started turning the sound up. And now they're pushing me out front. I said, damn it, I want to be out front. I want to play trumpet. I wouldn't be playing the bass. So I had to recalibrate my whole thing. Now I'm playing the bass. I'm stuck out here, and people know who I am, and I have to step up to the plate, basically.
Yeah.
So that's kept me going also. The fact that I have to keep pushing myself, live up to my name in that sense, basically.
Wow.
Sure. As Ron Carter said so succinctly, he said, finding the right notes is coming, finding the right notes. That's what it comes down to, and having the ability to find them quick enough so you're not depressed or confused. You're messing up everybody else's thing. You want to be able to learn quickly. So learning fast is a very advantageous thing for a musician. That's why a lot of musicians, they speak fast, they think fast. They're very, very intelligent. Most musicians, crazy intelligent.
Except for Tom, of course.
All right. Yes. Well, we'll speak to the musicians' wives. We're going to have the musicians' wives on there to agree.
Well, definitely the wife will has something to say about that. You can start with my wife.
But your King Curtis was your entry into the world of recording studios. You talk about a quick learner. How did you adapt from playing live to playing in the studio? Two different disciplines, indeed.
Friend Richard Dubin, who's a well-known author and television, TV producer and writer, we came up as kids in the All Bronx Junior High School Orchestra.
Right. Okay.
I was 12, he was 13, and later we met in a group called the Mixed Birds.
Okay.
And this guy was he's a white kid. He had a receding hairline. So when I met him at 12, he had a full head of hair. By 16, 13, when I was 14, he was 15, he was already losing his hair.
Okay.
And he would come to the rehearsals with stories about going down to Birdland. He could drive a car, but he lived in Mount Vernon or Yonkers someplace, and he could drive into the city, hang out with Clark Terry and Milt Hinton and George Duvivier and Joe Newman and the Basie Band, the Ellington Band. Kid knew everybody. He told me what their day was like, what their job was like. Besides playing in these bands, they made records and commercials and films all day. I said, wow. I want to do that. That was it.
What was expected of you as a studio musician back then? I mean, obviously you had to have those sight reading skills, yes?
Well, I had sight reading skills, but what they wanted was creativity.
Is that right?
And I would be doing, and start doing demo sessions. I was doing demo sessions for J.J. Jackson, and I got in a session with Nina Simone my first year, in 65, and I got my first Grammy nomination in 67 with Irma Franklin, and then from then on, King Curtis called me after that. First, when I joined King Curtis's band, he promised me recording sessions, and I was already doing recording sessions. I said, more recording sessions. I like that. And, okay, so I'll leave my day job at the bank and I'll go full-fledged into this thing. And so that's what I did. Because I had run it by that time I already had a kid. I had to have extra money coming in. So I got a day job to help me support more than the 3 or 4 days I was working a week playing music. I left the bank and joined his band, but when he recorded Memphis Soul Stew without me, in 67, I left the band the next day and joined Lionel Hampton's band. Fortunately, that gig was waiting for me because I knew Eddie Prezant was the straw boss. He said, I'll get you a gig with Gates. So I was waiting with Gates for a month. He promised me we going to Japan and blah, blah, blah. And that didn't pan out. I said, hell with it. I'm going to stay here in New York and just become a studio musician, which was what my goal was. I'm just going to do that. And then finally, a month later, King Curtis called me and said, look, you don't got to be in the band, you don't got to tour, but just make my record. I said, cool. And that was it.
Yeah. A lot of the UK studio musicians that we've talked to said they were hired more for their feel than their chop. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I had both. I had chops. I had a lot of chops, a lot of feel coming from the upright bass. I had chops of the yin-yang. But it was about being able to limit, basically not control myself and not play so much, which is what I learned from King Curtis. I stopped, he got me to play less, basically. Okay, all right. Calm me down, kind of got into that idea of repeating things over and over again, which coming as a jazz musician, no, you never do that. Right. You never do. Every chorus is different, so I had to, just train myself to just think that way, which it worked out well. It's easy. It's cool. I like the freedom of playing something different every time.
Right. And of course, you, Gordon, Chuck, Randy, you guys all came from the upright. You all came from jazz.
Well, I did. They came from guitar, trumpet, and Gordon played violin, actually.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Oh, yeah. That's where he had that. That's where he had them chops. He had them chops, man. Gordon had chops of the yin.
When stuff first started, I used to go to McKell's all the time when they were playing there. and sit myself in the front row. And it always marveled when I looked at Gordon's bass. It was really dirty up to about the 5th or 6th fret. It was clean.
Yeah, that's right.
And the first time we did a show with Chris Parker, I said, when you backed up Joe Cocker, you ruined everything at McKell's, because now everybody is trying to come into this little place. And I never went back.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They tore it down.
They sure did.
Yeah, Gordon was a hell of a leader. He was good, still one of my best friends. He's laying up in a hospital, VA hospital now.
Or was he?
I know. We've been trying to get a hold of him. I'm trying to remember what her name was.
Bridget.
But pardon me?
Bridget St. John.
That's right.
That's his wife.
Yeah, and I was on the McKell's website one day. I guess it was his birthday. So I gave a little about how I would go watch the show, and then I'd go back to my apartment on 85th and Riverside and just sit there till 4 a.m. going, and it's like I got more out of watching him play than virtually anybody else. It was really an education, just seeing how he placed the note when he didn't play, how cool that was. Just great stuff.
A master of rhythm and space, absolutely.
He certainly was. In fact, I'll do sessions and I'll put, if I want to play simple, I think about Gordon. Right away, I go into Gordon mode. I very rarely try to copy anybody, but I'll play within that style. I think about him more so probably than anybody else. I could probably put my hands on when I want to think of simplicity and just being very authoritative. You know, big, heavy foot, play it with authority. You mean it. You don't got to play a lot. Yeah. You know, so I draw on him a lot for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the topics we raised with your friend Ron Carter, and we want to raise it with you as well, is the new phenomenon of streaming concerts. Now, this happened, obviously, this started as a result of COVID. Larry Grenadier, you probably know, did a wonderful concert from the Village Vanguard. And he had just put out a record called The Gleaners, which is just him solo bass. And he did this beautiful concert from Village Vanguard. There was no one in the audience, but it was beautifully lit. It was beautifully amplified. And I think, David, what was the pay scale? You had to pay at least $10 and whatever else you can.
Yeah, there was some sort of donation of $10 or $15.
Right, $10, $15. And then later that month, we did we chatted with a couple of the Zombies, the British rock group, the Zombies. And they were doing a concert, a video concert, a streaming concert from Abbey Road. And one of the nice things that they could do was bring in an orchestra, which they couldn't normally take on the road. Of course, a DX could replicate that, but it was nice to have actual members of an orchestra in the studio. And it was fascinating to get a look inside of what Abbey Road is. And we're thinking now with streaming and everything, is this a viable outlet for musicians now creatively and economically? Have a Jerry Jemmott concert live from Jerry's place, and I'd pay $10 and I would queue that up on my laptop or my smart TV and watch you and your band play.
It is viable. I have a friend of mine I referred to up San Jose who's doing quite well doing that when COVID came, doing quite well. He still continues to he got into videography as a result of it. It took him to a whole level in terms of he was a great bassist, guitarist, and engineer, but now he's become a great video engineer and editor. The editing curve is amazing with video. It's not like audio. And he's becoming quite proficient with that. He has cameras all over his studio now. It's just up there. And every time we record something, he's filming it, basically. It's quite violent. He's done quite well for it. It is a thing of the future for some people. I mean, some people who have those skills can do that. And people will pay to see that. He has quite a following.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously it's getting more and more difficult to tour, just the insurance, and now with COVID restrictions and, you've got to play 3 gigs a week to break even. And sometimes that's not feasible because so many venues have closed down. Streaming could be a way to make up for some of that money you don't make touring.
That's true. It's many streams of income. I mean, it's just one stream of income that you have to have these days. I mean, there was a time when I wouldn't hire anybody who wasn't a full-time musician. If you had a day job, you wanted to be in my band. You had to be fully committed. But these days, you have to have streams of income from many different sources. So do what you got to do, man. Just show up for the gig. Go show up rehearsal, learn the music. But this is where it's at. The playing field has been leveled where everybody has an opportunity. And the 15 seconds you might have had on the shelf before somebody comes to push you off, Now it's only 3 seconds.
And have those 3 seconds.
Exactly. You can be pushed off by a 9-year-old who can play several instruments.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
This is what you're looking at. You're looking at things like this. The social aspect of being, people want to see themselves. It's always about people wanting to see something themselves, something being man-made, something they can refer to. They want to be a part of it. I know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. It's that kind of thing. Now they can be actually, into getting it, making it happen. So it's quite interesting. It's a quite interesting time.
Right.
I mean, this show never would have happened if it wasn't for COVID.
Exactly.
Everyone was sitting at home. Hey, let's do this,
Yeah. Like they say, creativity, creativity comes out of a need, of lack of something. That's why you created this. Desperation.
Right. Yeah.
That's where it comes from. So what I'm talking about is really, because I'm just another one.
That's right. Desperation brings inspiration.
Exactly.
Always. Perspiration.
Yes. Yeah. You can put the perspiration to make it so it becomes viable and becomes a reality. It's funny. I was reading something that Arnold Schwarzenegger said. He thinks the same way I say. I say it differently. But he says once you envision yourself being something, you want to vision yourself being that person immediately, that you are that person. But you get that vision and you grow into it.
Yeah.
I refer to it as being a point, a decimal point, and that only you can see. And then it becomes bigger, and then it becomes a solid, then becomes a shape, and becomes, the next thing you know, somebody else can see it. And then it becomes, the more people see it, the more viable it becomes. But you are everything that big solid was from the very beginning. From that one point.
I heard someone say, act as if.
Yes. Yeah. Let's say fake it till you make it.
Exactly. There you go.
You can put it that way.
So given where we are now in the 21st century, what say you, Jerry, to young bass players? I mean, they can't just be Jerry Jemmott in 1965. They have to do a whole lot of other things. What do you think is a well-rounded education for a bass player?
For bass players, learning, depending upon the learning curve, the reason why you're playing the bass, that's an important thing. To play anything well requires time.
Sure. Put
the time in, and to have the right network, the right tools to learn from, to learn with, the people to learn with. Some people, music just drops out of them without a thought of it. They don't even require instruction.
Sure.
But most of us, a lot of us, require instruction is very helpful. You find a good teacher, but you have to, for every hour you spend with your teacher, you got to spend 7 on your own.
Yes.
It comes down to that. You have to be committed. But depending upon what level of development do you want as a young bass player? Do you want to be professional? Do you want to be semi-pro? Do you play as a hobbyist? There's nothing wrong being a hobbyist.
Right.
This is playing for your own enjoyment. That's what my accountant tells me I'm doing right now. According to the IRS.
How do you keep yourself to them? Yeah. So
you have to whatever your goal is, you want to be able to have the right. I say in my book, to learn is sometimes a battle of life between yourself, your ego, patience, and their allies, impatience, blah, 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 blah. But basically it comes down to being committed and sticking to it, basically. With time, you can develop it. I guess I refer to my music book. What's the name of the book? The Bass in You.
Okay.
Oh yeah, have a young bass player pick up my book, The Bass in You. Okay. I would suggest that. It's available on my website. It's I'm in the process of editing it, but I don't know if I've finished editing it. Mm-hmm. There's some things in there I don't like about it, but the information when I'm talking to you now, it's definitely in that book. I can't quote the page exactly, but I eloquently state what learning is about. And I have like I say, my memory is not that great. It never has been. So I have to sometimes read things. That's why I got over as a studio musician, because I could always read well.
Right.
Like I took a test in school before I had my childhood car accident, and I came up with a reading grade of a first. I was 9 years old, and my reading score was the first year of college. That was before I had the accident.
Wow.
So my comprehension of reading has always been at a high level. I never lost that. They put me in a special class because I could read well, and to have me graduate in 2 years instead of 3. Didn't happen. I knew better. Because the other things I had going on, but because I could read, they put me there. Just because of that. Forget the fact that I couldn't hear and see and nothing like that. they didn't want to hear about that, and I couldn't remember anything. My attention deficit was out there. I could remember I'd be looking at something on the wall. I'd be so easily distracted by things. I got that what they call ADD, ADHD. I've realized that's what I had all my life, but they didn't have a name for it. I didn't know what it was. I just dealt with it. I knew I could remember shit, basically. So that was where I had to really read, keep focused. And it makes a difference. I can tell by my recordings which ones I was reading on, as far as the chart, and where I wasn't following the chart.
I think back then they used to call it attention deficit.
Attention deficit, yes.
That's what they used to call it. Yeah.
Well, they didn't tell me that.
Yeah.
They always tell me I can.
But I called it as the teacher was boring and put me to sleep, and I needed to be challenged a bit more.
Yes.
Oh, ye gods. Anyway, but and lastly, Jerry, when you did the Jocko video, I mean, so many people cite that now, and of course, it's it's on YouTube, it's everywhere, it's ubiquitous. When anybody wants to know about Jocko, they go to that video. When you did that, I know Jocko wasn't in the best of health then, but did you have a sense that you were capturing history when you were doing that video, or was?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I knew what was going on. He came to me, and I saw in him what I saw in me, with the problems I had all my life. So we it's like nothing had to be said. We just took care of business and got it done. It's just as simple as that. He, like everybody else, they heard the desperation in my sound, the energy that I put out. And he became a fan, based upon that. I didn't know. And when I heard him for the first time in 1974, I said, damn, somebody put the work in. Because he wasn't playing anything that was not that and imagined to play, but he did it.
Right.
So it was cool. Then I find out 7 years later, that I'm his inspiration.
Right.
And I got that too. I understood that. So he came to me I had a feeling of, who he was and what was about and where he was now and the troubles he's gone through and, the depression, everything I've lived, what he lived with. It wasn't a stranger to me. So we got it done. I was in trouble myself at the time. I talk about that in my book too.
The thing that I think was most poignant for me is when you had said, Jocko, you're this, and he said, hey, get me a gig. That broke my heart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was heartbreaking. That was a setup. I knew what was going on. We had worked together, and the night before I got the assignment to, we were actually going to do it this time. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, now I'll go to work. I'll write an interview out. I hadn't done a thing except we work together. We teach and hang out and share ideas and talk about doing it. But I hadn't done a thing until I'm not doing a thing until they call me. We down the line, and we're going to make some money and do this.
Right.
I wasn't going to waste my time on something because we had several producers come and turn us down, and they tried to incarcerate him so he would show up and things like that. Nature, they didn't trust him. So I didn't do anything until he got the call the night before. And the night before, I wrote down 20 questions. Okay. And went from there. And that was one of the questions I knew I had to put down. We need some work. The man needs to get, so I had to, lay it out. So tell his story, basically, and where he was now and what would possibly help him at that particular point in time.
Yeah, but it was great. I mean, that's it. That is the only real record we have of Jocko discussing his style, his career, and his influences. Really, that's so very important document. Just as your new book, I'm That Guy.
I'm That Guy. Yes, indeed.
And you got to read The Bass in You, David. So two books, our viewers and listeners.
The Bass in You. That's true. Right. I'm so busy trying to write that book
on our site with our podcast, so they'll be able to click on it and go to it.
And sell those books. We'll sell some books and put them in your Christmas stocking, David. Nice stockings. Anyway.
So you guys are doing quite well with this podcast, it looks like. You guys, I like your backdrop.
David,
good.
we just have nice furniture. Yes, that's it.
Well, it helps, man.
That's because we have wives.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Anyway, that's how it goes. All right, Jerry, thanks for being our guest, and we'll let you know when this airs, and we'll have you back again. We'll put you out. We got to have you and Ron.
You and Ron, that'll be a great show.
We had a great time. We go back a long ways. I mean, it's
Tell us a Ron Carter story before you go.
Well, he's one of the reasons I actually started really forced me into playing electric bass. So after he started doing that little pull-off thing on the G string I used to do on the upright, when I heard a recording with him doing it, I said, "Oh shit! Somebody stole my shit." Before I could put it down, I had somewhat of a vendetta against him for a long time. until we started working together in the studio. When he would show up playing the upright bass, I'd be playing the electric bass. Him and Richard Davis and
right, sure.
Hey, can you imagine? Richard Davis turned 93 yesterday.
Yes, he
God
did.
bless him. Yeah,
the 15th. No, actually, it wasn't yesterday. It was the 15th of May. The 15th.
Okay.
Of April. We're 16 days where we used to celebrate our birthdays together, right between them. It would be April 2nd. We would celebrate it on. So we had like 20s, what is it? What's the map? 9, 15, and 9, 24. Yeah. We're 24 days apart.
Yeah.
All right. Great stuff. All right, Jerry, thanks for being our guest.
You're welcome, man.
God bless.
Talk to you soon.
Good job with editing this show.
Yes.
Oh, that's the easy part. I just erase everything.
Yeah, that's how we usually work it out. All right, be well, sir.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
David. Okay, Tom. Nice meeting you both, and enjoy the rest of the week.
You got it,
Take
man.
care.